He told me that he was in no condition to drive me back to South Africa, my country, because he was the one who was supposed to smuggle me back into South Africa. So he said that first we had to go and bury his relative. But when we were at his relative's funeral, that was when he told me that there was a car that will be traveling from Mozambique going to South Africa. So the guys were going to smuggle me back into South Africa, and he was going to pay them all for their work that they were going to do. That was when I was given a 2-liter bottle of water that I was supposed to use after praying with my ancestors, speaking with them when I will be holding my son. And after I had spoken with them, I was supposed to wash my son with that water that I had taken from Mozambique. So I got into those men's car. My brother, people out there are hard at work, because once I had gotten into that car, I saw that there were a lot of herbs. It was a double cab Hilux buggy, and there was a lot of herbs, and different animal skins and oils. And they said that they were going to deliver all of these medicines to some healers here in South Africa. Some were said to have came as far as Malawi. There were also python skins and some oil that was claimed to be used for money-making rituals like quick money. In that car, there was also a head of a baboon, which they said that this head of a baboon was meant for a man of God, but this man of God was going to pass through South Africa, and as he will be passing through South Africa, he will then collect that head of a baboon whilst he will be traveling back to his country. We traveled from Mozambique without ever resting. We would only rest when one of us wanted to urinate. When I arrived back home, my wife asked me where the money was, but I told her that there was this other ritual that I was supposed to perform so that the money can magically appear in my bank account. We waited for the evening to arrive, and after the evening had arrived, I then woke up and I went outside whilst I was holding my son in my arms. That was when I started whispering to my ancestors, saying as much as I could remember, since my mom had taught me how I was supposed to speak with my ancestor, because I never knew my father. I just knew my clan name. After I had spoken with my ancestors, I then placed my son on the ground and I knelt down and I started clapping my hands whilst I was kneeling down, and I had placed my son just in front of me. That was when I opened up that 2-liter bottle that had the water that I had been given whilst I was in Mozambique. All this while, my son was naked. When I was doing all of these prayers, whilst I was performing all of these rituals, I never thought that maybe my son will end up dying. Even though it was very cold, my son never cried. He was just shivering from the cold. After I had finished bathing him with that cold water, I then returned back indoors. I can say that that was when my son fell ill. I think that the cold had affected him so much that he got sick and he never fully recovered from that coldness. I went to sleep with hope that when we would wake up, there will be millions in my bank account. I will be able to take my son to the most expensive hospital in our country. But when I woke up, there was nothing in the bank account, and my son was so sick such that if you could touch him, you would feel the freezing coldness leaving his body. We rushed to the clinic with my son. They transferred us to the provincial hospital. As we were going to the provincial hospital, that was when we lost our son. I think by the time that we got to the provincial hospital, my son was already dead, because I saw that my wife, the way that she kept on shaking my son whilst we were on the ambulance, something bad must have happened to my son. That was when I realized what had happened. My son, he had passed away. So when we arrived at the hospital, they then began with the process of recording the death of my son. It was quite a very terrible time for me and my wife. From that night, I saw that she was truly disappointed. And from that day, I saw that my wife, she was truly disappointed in me. But I kept on giving my wife hope, thinking that maybe since we had lost our son and the way that our son had died, we were going to get this magic money. It was like each and every minute I kept on opening up my bank app just to see if there was no 2 million rands that had been loaded into that banking app, because this is what this man had told me, that when I would wake up there will be magic money that will be loaded into my bank account. Throughout the day, my brother, whilst we were busy preparing for the funeral of my son, I kept on checking my bank account, thinking that God was going to answer my prayers, but there was no money. Sometimes when I would receive an SMS, my heart will start beating so fast when I will be opening up my phone, thinking that maybe it was a message from the bank telling me that there is 2 million rands that had been deposited into my bank account. But my brother, the whole funeral for my son was done in a cultural way. Then we buried my son. After we had buried my son, still there was no money that was coming my way. That was when we saw that this thing of magic money, it was not going to happen. It was quite a terrible time for me by the time that I had to return back to work, because I thought that I was never going to become a car salesman again. I was going to become a very rich man. When I returned back to work, that was when I got the nerves to start calling that man, and each and every time that I would call him, he would say that he is very busy and I should speak with him the very next day. The next day when I would call him, he would then tell me that he has some business to attend and I should wait for his call, but you will never call me. I kept on waiting for his calls. Even up until today, I am still waiting for his call. The last time that I spoke with him, he told me that the reason why I was not able to receive this money in my bank account, it was because I was not brave enough to be rich. The moment that I am going to be brave, then the magic money is going to appear in my bank account. I am still waiting for this magic money to appear into my bank account. He said that at the time when I was busy speaking with my ancestors had seen that I am nothing but a coward, so they chose not to give me this money that was supposed to appear in my bank account. But Brother Nashi, how much brave can I be with all that I did, leaving my country, going to Mozambique and losing my son in the process? But that man told me that I was not brave enough. I have tried to be brave, thinking that maybe I'll see money in my bank account. Years passed. That was when I met another man who said that he would try to reconnect me with my ancestors, because the connection that was there between me and my ancestors was lost when I was performing all of those rituals. He then gave me some herbs to place underneath my pillow, so I did as he had told me to do. But when I went to bed, I then saw a man whom I immediately recognized to be my father. This man, whom I recognized as my father, was standing with his ancestors, even though I never knew my father, but I felt that indeed this was my ancestors. So in my dream, it was like I was standing in a forest, but I had been busy hunting such that I had grown tired. As I kept on walking around the forest looking for game to hunt, I then had this other large spear. So by the time that I saw my father in my dream, the first thing that he said is that he wanted the spear that he had given to me. So I gave him that large spear that I was using when I was hunting. But it surprised me that after my father had grabbed the spear from my hands, he then broke that spear into several pieces. That was when I woke up. When I told this man the dream that I had had, he said that it meant that my ancestors had cursed me such that I would live a life without any blessings from them. And he said, what good is a broken spear in a hand? If you can respond to that question, that is the answer to your life. It means, my brother, that I am just walking around with a broken spear. What good is a broken spear in a hunt. I am still working as a car salesman at another dealership, and I am still the man that I was. Expect that I lost my son. People that I have consulted with, most of them that are from foreign countries, they say that the man from Mozambique used me in his own rituals, and the way that he set me up is to make me to sacrifice my own son in place of his children that he was supposed to sacrifice. Dear listeners, right there was a message that was sent to me by one of our admins. Strange things do happen in this world. I was trying to look for this other photo that was sent to me by one of our listeners. Strange things happen in this world. There was this other man who was arrested in South Africa. This man is from Zim. So when he was arrested, he had huge sums of money. I think the money, it might be somewhere around 30 million or so. When this man was arrested, he had the head of a lion in his car. When he was asked where he was going, he was saying that he's coming from this other place. I think it was in Northwest, if I still remember. Then the man was saying that he was coming from a place where he had done some money-making rituals. Strange things do happen in this world.